Hello and welcome to Get Into Games on Air, a podcast about board games and the people who play them.
And welcome to meeple2meeple. As always, I remain PJ. This is episode 107.
Hold on. Whoa. This is Get Into Games on Air. This is episode 40. This is an episode. What? Sorry?
No. This is meeple2meeple, episode 107, a podcast duo.
I'm sorry. This is Get Into Games on Air. It's a podcast duet. I think you'll find.
No. This is meeple2meeple, episode 107, a podcast duel.
Whoa. No, this is episode 40. A podcast DOS. I can't think of any more dual name. Dual,
duet.
It's episode 40, anyway.
It's episode 107.
40.
Anyway, you guys, stop arguing.
Okay. Oh, you're here too. Hi.
Oh.
Hi. We're all here.
Hello. As you can hear, those dulcet tones of episode 107, all right, is the wonderful PJ from meeple2meeple. If you're listening to this on the Get Into Games feed, of course, and joining us, as always, is Rebecca.
Hi.
Hey,
The
Becky.
whole podcast.
Yes.
Okay. Just
No.
so we can put
Yes,
it.
we are.
We can put it.
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
I am not going to argue with you.
Right.
I will rise above the debate.
We can end this.
No, you will
right
not.
now.
Okay.
Do you want to play a game?
Let's play a game.
Yes, let's play a game.
Okay. You have to try and guess the game from the clue words.
It's Everdell Duo.
So
No.
the clues will get less abstract. So you'll be able
Okay.
to work out the game as you get more clues.
Interesting.
Okay.
So
All right. It's Civolution.
no.
Mm-hmm.
The first word is grid.
Grid. Cities.
No.
Hues and cues.
No.
Oh, that was good.
Second word.
That's a good guess.
Yellow.
Yellow grid.
Yellow grid. It sounds like trauma. Yellow grid. Yellow grid.
Oh.
Yellow grid.
Yellow.
Okay,
Grid.
I think the arguing is over. Craig, what's a yellow grid?
Yellow grid. I'm
Just
gonna...
say a game that comes to your mind.
With a yellow
yellow-
grid in it.
With a yellow grid.
Grid.
Ooh, a yellow grid.
Yellow.
Maharani.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't say
Right.
Maharani.
Are you guessing?
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a grid of squares. Fromage.
No. Next
But that's a
word
good guess.
is
Thank you.
dice.
Well, of course it's dice. It's a yellow grid of squares. So yeah,
What else are
dice.
you going to do
That is
with
so
a
not
yellow
helpful.
grid of
A
squares?
yellow grid of dice. A yellow grid of dice.
Yellow
Well,
grid of dice.
Okay, is it a grid of yellow dice or is it a yellow grid of dice?
Is it dice
No,
thrown? Dice.
It's yellow grid. No, it's a grid, yellow, dice.
Grid yellow dice.
Grid yellow.
What did you say? Dice. Sorry.
Dice
No.
minor. Dice minor is what I
Dice
meant to
minor,
say.
no.
Unearth.
No.
I know.
Next word is people.
Oh, that's
Grid.
easy. Meeple2meeple's episode 107.
Have you got a game out that's called People to
It
People?
might be getting to games as episode 40. I don't know.
Oh, guys!
Oh,
No,
yeah.
grid,
Grid.
yellow,
Yellow.
dice,
Dice.
people.
Grid yellow dice people. Grid yellow dice people.
Man.
She don't make it easy, does she?
Are you staring at your game collection? Because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Grid yellow dice. people.
I have
Wow.
tested this out on people
What people?
before
I'm
it
gonna-
came here. Tested it.
Wow.
Grid
Do you
yellow.
want the last word?
No, not
How
yet.
about-
Guess
How
this
about Salton Sea?
No.
Ooh, how about the game of grid yellow dice people? Cubitos.
No. Last word.
Okay.
I bet you're going to get it now. Murder.
Murder.
Cluedo.
Yes!
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's Clue.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's actually episode 40.
Oh! So, we had some feedback on the game, and
Oh, yes.
one of my friends
Oh.
said it was too hard because they were intro gamers who hadn't played many games. So
Okay.
they liked the game, but they didn't know what the games were because they hadn't experienced those games. So I thought I'd try out one that most people had.
Yes. And yes. And if you are listening to the podcast and you think we choose games that are too up to date and too modern, do better, Ian. Do better. So
Wow.
So
We just lost the follower.
I have a question. Yellow grid? Yellow?
So
The board's yellow.
The board with the squares is yellow.
So the problem here in the US is we like to update everything every few years, and I don't think it's yellow.
Is it grey now?
Well, the picture.
I think it's like I think it's meant to be marble, and so it's kind of a gray.
The original, the classic,
original
the
classic
OG,
was yellow.
the oregano was definitely yellow.
Anyway,
No.
what we're going to talk
Oregano.
about?
So this episode of the podcast, which is sponsored by Shirts and Merch. Shirts and Merch is a fantastic board game apparel company that ships worldwide to the world, not just in Old Blighty. They're based in Old Blighty, but they ship all over the world.
Even America?
Even the United States of America.
Ooh.
And they do Blood on the Clock Tower. They do Obsession. They do Snowdonia. They do Nemesis. They do all of your favourites in T-shirt form, and they are the most comfortable, long-lasting T-shirts you will ever likely to own and wear. So go to Games Night in style in a Shirts and Merch shirt. Shirts and merch.
Okay.
Wow.
Head to Etsy, you lads.
What have you been playing, PJ?
So yeah,
Well-
in this episode, we are going to talk about... I'm going to talk over you because you have not introed my podcast properly.
I thought she did a great job, personally. I want Becky to introduce all of our episodes from now on.
The problem is, I find that she just can't take turns.
Well, we're not going to argue about that. I can't argue.
You guys are mean.
Becky cannot, in fact, take turns. And so we're going to come back to that. To answer your question, in this episode 107 of Meeple to Meeple, I just returned from St. Louis, Missouri, where I was at Geekway Mini all weekend. 400 guests only, so it's a limited badges. They have a games library and the Play and Win library. But I noticed some people playing Heat, Pedal to the Metal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was a group of people. It wasn't sanctioned by Geekway, but a group of people organized a little tournament. And so they played all the different racetracks. So I think there were 4 currently, with 2 more on the way. Right? But what did we learn, Craig? When you taught me how to play Heat, we learned that when you're trying to go around a corner, take a turn on the road, as it will.
Yes.
Is that your co-host, lovely as she is, cannot take turns.
It's true.
Or maybe he pushes her luck a little bit too much.
So yeah, so what sort of games did you play at Geekway then? How did you have a good time? What was happening at Geekway Mini?
We had a fantastic time. So why Mini? There's a bigger Geekway to the west in May. I think it's probably about 5,000 or 6,000 attendees with a small vendor hall. Still has a Play and Win library. Still has a games library. A couple of events, some demos and things like that. But on a small scale. This is even smaller. It's all one big conference room, and it's nothing but play games. And in the play and win library, you get to put your name in. You check the game out. When you check it back in, you can then do a review, and it puts your name in the hat to win a copy of that game at the end of the weekend. We played 27 unique titles over the course of 3 days.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good going.
Yeah. A couple of highlights. We opened the weekend with charcuterie.
That looks quite interesting. I saw that.
Let me tell you what, that game is fun. and you got to think about, like, I have never racked my brain over where do I put the cheese and the crackers. And it's like, there's square bread, which are crackers, and round bread, which are also crackers. But I got to make sure I put the round bread next to the aged cheese, and the square bread has to go next to the fruit. And then this group of fruit over here, I need one of everything. I can't have any duplicates. Oh my God. Just really,
is
so
it
good.
a bit like that Picture Perfect, but a board of meat and cheese instead? Like, you know how Picture Perfect, where you have to place the people in the right place for the photographs? Is it like that? You have to place things on a board in the right place?
No.
Oh.
It's because, so what's interesting is these are, now in the retail version, as we were talking about earlier, retail and deluxe, in the retail version, it's all cardboard. So you can lay them a little bit on top of each other. The key is that for each cheese or bread, half of it has to be exposed to be considered as part of the group. So you don't want to stack them up too neatly. You want to spread it out and make it beautiful. And then you'll score the different groups on your cheese board. It's worthy. It was a lot of fun. That game was crazy fun. I was not prepared for how much fun. And then we followed it up with a heavy 4 hours of Civolution.
Nice.
Which is great. That game was just, Gareth played it a couple times and owns a copy, and that was incredible. That was an incredible game, and we were like, oh God, I hope we win a copy of this game. But we played a lot of cool stuff. In Tarsia is probably the game, and I shared it with y'all while I was there. I don't know why people aren't talking about this game. Beautiful wooden components. The insert is amazing because you keep everything in the box off to the side. You're laying, I can't remember what you call it. There's a name for the technique. You're laying wooden panels on the floor of a cafe, right? And so you have like the frames, and then you have the inner frames, and then you have the even smaller inner frame, and then you have these little wooden tables that fit in the middle, and you score points based on how many of these you end up filling in at the end of the game. There's some other strategic scoring points as you go, but you're essentially building the floor of a cafe it's a Café de Paris. I think this is 18th or 19th century. Beautiful game. And I'm like, why isn't anyone talking about this? We played it multiple times. We really wanted to win a copy of that, but we didn't. So that's unfortunate. We played Men Nefer. Guys, best game of the weekend. We're going to talk about that more in the second segment of this episode for sure. Let's see. What else do we play? We played a lot of games, though. We did learn that Far Away, not the good Far Away by Cherry Picked Games in outer space, but that, I'm going to make some people mad here, that stupid card game. That was a waste of 45 minutes of my time that I just can't get back.
Yeah. I agree with you.
You know?
I don't see what all the fuss is about. I just, my head can't, I get what it's asking you to do. You go on a walk, you collect the things, you bring them back for the people who want the things. Craig's explained all that to me. I just can't be bothered to think through the process backwards.
Yeah.
Just give me another game.
It's just, it's just not interesting.
But I know a lot of people love it.
Everyone.
I know they do. I mean, the best way for me to explain far away is, okay, I'm going to lay down a certain number of cards. Was it 9 or 12? I don't remember the exact number. From left to right. And then I'm going to score them from right to left. Fun. Great. Yeah. Was there a theme? Oh, and I'm not, the art didn't do anything for me. Now, I know people like the art. It's not for me. And that part, you can't do anything about. But I was like, you could strip away the theme and just be like, do I have enough of these icons, these maps, these little scarabs or whatever they are? And it's like, okay, yeah, great.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, as we are going to talk about later on about theme and learning games, and teaching games through theme, the theme of that game just, it doesn't come through, because what am I delivering? I'm delivering a skull. I'm 4 skulls.
A pineapple?
You wanted? Okay, I can get that.
Yeah.
You want me to go to the pineapples and get the pineapples? I understand that. But then there's like some random things. I'm like, I don't. Maybe if everything was less humanoid and more alien and more, I'm exploring deep space to think. Like maybe then it might make more sense to me. But I just, and also it's quite like you've got to hope that those cards come out and they sit properly, because if you're unlucky, you're not scoring anything on the way. Yeah, no.
So there's something to do with, there's a number in the corner, and when you play a card, if it's higher than the number that you previously played, then you get a smaller card that you put over top. So I was being really meticulous. My numbers were completely in an ascending order. I was doing everything right. Oh, but PJ, you don't have enough of this icon, so you didn't score any points. I'm like, oh, well, this card says I get 17 points. Well, no, you don't have this. You don't have the icons in your path. But I do. I can see them. No, you haven't gotten there yet. Y'all don't understand. This was a waste of my time, and I'm done. And I think I'm done talking about it. So, yeah, let's.
PJ's birthday soon, so if you need to get him a gift,
Yep, we played some cool games. There was just a lot going on. We got to play Black Forest by Uwe Rosenberg. That was good. I'd never played Glass Road, which is a prequel or a precursor or a previous. It was good. It was really good. It was classic Uwe. Was really happy about getting an opportunity to play that. I finally got to play Wondrous Creatures.
Yep.
That's a solid. That was solid. Oh, Ravens of Forgers of Ravenshire.
Yeah, with the big badger on the front. Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. Well-designed game as well. That was a lot of fun. We played it twice. That was fantastic. So you mentioned one of your guesses when we were trying to guess Becky's game was Cities. Right. So we finally got to play Cities. Katie and I were a little concerned about the hype around Cities. I don't get it.
Oh, really?
Did you play it wrong like we played it wrong? Or did you play it right that we played it wrong? What?
I don't.
When you played 2-player, did you create a 3x5 grid or a 3x3 grid?
3x3, as we were told. Yeah. It just. Now, I don't feel as bad about it as I did the previous game we talked about, but yeah, it was just kind of okay.
It's a King Domino. It's a step up from King Domino, I think, in complexity. It's like where you go next. I still think it does work better with more than 2, but it does work. Yeah. We quite like it at 2, just as a kind of after work to the table game.
I think with 4 players, you're blocking each other and stopping each other from getting those better tokens.
Yeah,
I think at 2-player, it always feels a bit monotonous after you've done a couple of rounds. You're like, yeah, I'm just picking up from this row, and now I'm picking up from this row, and it can be a bit.
Yeah. Yeah,
and you have more choice because you're putting more meeples down. You have more choice at 2 players, whereas you don't have of every single selection. You have one choice to make in that row, whereas at 2 players you have 2 choices in every single row. So you have more. It's not as tight in a 2-player game. But yeah,
Right.
it's not heavy, but
No, it's not heavy at all. And I guess I think what worked against it is that Katie and I are big fans of DeVere.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but they have really been producing solid quality titles, right? Like so much so that I have multiple Calaxes that are cubes filled, right? I mean, there's Red Cathedral, there's White Castle, there's Bamboo, Salton Sea. I remember, they're so good. And I was like, just everyone's talking about it. And we're like, well, okay. We walked away disappointed.
This happened at UKGE, didn't it? Because everyone saw DeVere and they saw Cities and they went, DeVere are making amazing mid to heavy games at the moment in small boxes. And it's not. It's Phil Walker Harding. If you expect a heavy game, then you're looking at the wrong designer.
But I think if you want to get people into DeVere games, it's quite a good, like, here's a DeVere game you can try, and then you might like other things.
I think you're right. I think you're onto something. It did not occur. That thought did not occur to us when we played it. I think we were comparing it to everything we own at home. I think if you're not familiar with DeVere, it's a lightweight game. It's accessible. Yes, it would not be a waste of my time to play that with someone who was new to the gaming hobby or new to DeVere games as a whole. Yeah.
Because I think also, like, Ouch is a DeVere game.
Oh, yeah. Ouch is good.
Oh, right.
Have you ever played Ouch?
No.
So, do you want to explain it?
Yeah, so it's a card game with cactus on it.
Okay.
You essentially put out 6 cards, and then you point to a side of the card. And the flowers on the cactus depict how dangerous the cactus is going to be. So if it's got 3 flowers on it, it's most dangerous. If you've got 2 flowers on it, it's kind of all right. And 1 flower is like, you're probably going to be fine. So you touch a side, and then you turn it over. And if there is like a prickle on the side that you touched, you don't take the cactus. But if it's prickle free, then you can take it and put it in your collection. The kids love it.
And the idea is that you're trying to collect sets of flowers and the highest number of reds. So you want to go for those 3s because the more flowers, the more points you're going to get. But there's a risk that you're going to get stabbed by the cactus when you say, I select the left-hand side, and you flip it over, and then there's a cactus, and you're like, ouch, so you lose the card. It's a really, So I mean, it's good for kids, but I think it's quite it's like a really nice quick filler between games.
So I think they do have a few in their collection that are kind of, come see what we do, and then you might like our heavier games.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think all companies need, because I doubt you're going to get White Castle out or Bamboo straight off the bat if you've got no idea of what.
Yep, that's fair. Hey, speaking of filler games, I want to tell you about a game that, well, I don't have to tell you, but I'm going to tell our listeners. A game that just blew me away, and that we're committed to finding a copy and buying it, and that was Fairy Ring. I had shared with some images of it with you. The components are gorgeous. They're amazing. That game is just fantastic. I never would have. Let's see, who makes that? It's so the designers Lawrence Grenier and Fabian Tanguy, and I don't know what the company is because I can't read that. Is it Repos? Is that Repos?
Oh, maybe.
I don't know, but the fairies are gorgeous. It's a 2 to 4 player. Fairies are moving around the board in a circle, in a ring. Our cards kind of create a ring, and we're just playing mushrooms in front of us. And when you land on a mushroom, you score points. But beware, if you land on your opponent's mushroom, they score points. But let's say I land on a purple mushroom in front of you. You will get the points. But if I have a purple mushroom in front of me, I will be able to score those as well. So that's nice. That was fun, cute, quick, easy filler game. I can definitely say that your girls are going to love it. Yeah.
It does look nice.
Yeah. We played Stock Exchange. So I don't know if you're familiar with the card game Gift of Tulips, which is kind of similar, where it's all about a tulip market, and you're manipulating the market of the tulip market in Denmark. Stock Exchange just takes that to a whole nother level. That game is, DOP is starting to do better with their games and their game quality. Wooden components, these 3-dimensional cardboard sheds where you hide the flower tokens, because you get points based on where they end up in the market at the end of the game, right? Kind of like a stock exchange, except a stock exchange, right? I don't like that. That game was a lot of fun as well. We played Wild Gardens finally. A lot of hype.
Seen that doing the rounds recently. Yeah, it's very pretty.
Yeah. So we played it the first time, and it gave me a physical headache. I was like, no. When you say brain burner, it literally burned my brain. The strategy. Katie was like, "What'd you think?" And I could just see her eyes glistening. She's so happy. Wow. She loved this game, and I'm like, "It was great." So on Sunday, the final day of the convention, I was like, "Let's play it again. First game of the day, right?" And we'll play it through. So you have these beautiful wooden meeples, although they're not meeples. They're well designed, fully formed, head to toe people. And you're walking around like a garden, and you're foraging different ingredients, and you've got a market of recipes, and they tell you what you need to cook that recipe. And then you also have a market of people that you want to serve those recipes to. But of course, Craig only likes breakfast foods, and Becky only likes cakes, and Katie only likes the tea or whatever. So you've got to monitor all that. Plus, you have to be on specific spaces that have a picnic table. You have to land on that and then take that action to cook or serve. Beautiful components. It's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Playing it the second time, it was just as difficult, but I had a rest, so that was nice. And I was like, what? Wild Gardens, guys. It's gorgeous. The components are great. There's no deluxeified craziness. It's a beautiful game at retail. And it's a lot of fun with deep strategy. Like, what? That's what I want from board games. Right?
So I have a question for you. You played 20, did you say 26 or 27 games?
27 games.
So how did you learn the rules? Did you use the rule book? Did you watch a how-to guide?
That is a great question. Great question. So the week before, Katie was in her free time. She was watching how to play games because the Play and Win library was announced on Board Game Geek ahead of time. So you knew which games were in there. So she was just watching all these play to win. Yeah, well, it was play to win. She was watching how to play videos, right?
Yeah.
If they were available. And then when you check the game out, they have taped a QR code on the inside of the box lid to a digital version of the rule book. That way I can scan the QR code and read it on my phone while Katie's actually looking at the physical rule book. But at the end of the day, you go in, you select a game off the shelf, they scan it and your badge to check it out. You go to your table and you learn to play it right there.
Yeah. But that's quite a difficult skill, isn't it? Sometimes to kind of read between the lines in the rule book, especially if it, some rule books are better than others, and it's quite a difficult feat to fit in 27 different rule sets.
It's true, but the thing is, as hobbyists, there are trends, right?
Yeah.
So Black Forest is a perfect example. It's classic Yui. If you play Yui Rosenberg's games, then you know his design. You know how generally the mechanics work, right? And we'll talk about not only theme, but mechanics in the second segment of the show. So you could pick it up really easily. It's just, all right, I need to learn a few things. That one was weird because it had the two wheels that kind of manage your resources. And so sometimes you had to spend resources so that you could make others. It was Black Forest. Pick it up at your local game store now. Yeah, it was really interesting. And we did that with every single game. And of course we're doing it at 2 players. So it's like, okay. it's not easy. I'm looking at some of my notes from the conference because I'm trying to what's another one was Stone Spire Architects.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot about that.
Same thing. We picked up the rule book. We looked at it. That game was great. We're really big into cartographers, so we have Role Player and all of its expansions. So we were like, we're familiar with the world, so it helped us, right? Mm-hmm. I think if you're one of the beautiful things about these play to win libraries is, I think the best thing to do is take someone who's either new to the hobby or like early in the hobby, right? Because some of these games, like I'm referencing other games to be like, well, I know this world, so I right. So it makes it intuitive. But what if you don't have that, right? What if, PJ? I have never played a board game beyond the classic Cluedo and Monopoly, and so how could I enjoy these games and get in as many of them? Well, you may not get in as many of them, but I think it's a great way to teach the game, right? I can teach it to you, and then you're like, oh, okay. And then you get familiar with more games, which is why it's really good to play as many as you can. Mm-hmm. It's great because now we've set up, there are games we're looking forward to in 2025 that we wouldn't have known. So one of the things I absolutely love about the Play to Win libraries, there's another convention in March. I'll be going with Adam from Tabletop Vibes. He and I are going to go down. We're going to meet some other content creators in Nashville, Tennessee. We'll go to Tennessee Game Days. They too have a Play to Win library. The real thing about the Play to Win library is that it gives you an opportunity to play a game and then be on the lookout for it in the future. And you get a chance to win them at the end.
That's really nice. I don't think we have anything.
Yeah, we have nothing like that
in the UK like that, do we?
No.
And so, and Becky, you asked me before the recording. Yes, we won 2 different games.
Yay!
Because you're only allowed 1 per person, right? And not everybody's going to win because there's not 400 copies of these games. But I won a copy of Men Neffer, who, again, we'll talk more about it. And Katie won a copy of Civolution. So the 2 big, heavy games that were our top 2 favorites, we both got a copy. And it's beautiful because we're in the same household. So we get 2 games. Yeah. We get 2 free games in the same household, which is amazing. And like you said, not everyone does this, right? Not conventions in England don't have this Play to Win.
No, not at all.
But y'all have something that we don't. Like, not that I'm aware of anywhere in the United States. Maybe New York City and Los Angeles. I don't know. It would be really cool if there was a way to be able to rent a game so that I could play it and then determine if I wanted to buy it. But I think you got something like that, don't you?
I don't know. Do we?
Yes, we do. It always comes as a surprise to you.
I'm shocked. Sorry, what's happening?
Rent, Shuffle and Roll.
Who?
Talk about them. He just segued into it. Amazing. Go.
I did a really good job, and I'm really upset with you right now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This podcast is sponsored by Rent, Shuffle and Roll. Rent, Shuffle and Roll, as you would have heard, is a fantastic board game rental service here in Old Blighty itself. They rent hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions, but maybe hundreds of board games to you lovely folks, so you can try board games before you buy board games. So why not sign up to Rent, Shuffle and Roll on a lovely monthly basis and play your most wished board games? And that's not all. If you use the code GITG50, that's GITG50, you will get 50% off your first month of Rent, Shuffle and Roll.
Yay!
If you use code meeple2meeple, it'll say invalid code. Please type in something else, and you'll have to type in GITG
50.
Get 50% off your first month. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that beautiful segue. I enjoyed it.
Because if your local game conventions don't offer a play-to-win option, Rent, Shuffle, and Roll is an excellent way for you and Old Blighty to rent a game. And don't forget the code GITG50 for 50% off.
Exactly.
Two of you in the room. It's really just.
And if you are wondering what sort of games they have for Rent, Shuffle and Roll often do the library at either Aircon or UKGE. So you can actually play Rent, Shuffle and Roll's board games and meet them at conventions and see what they're all about. And at UKGE, you can try and open the safe, because that's fun.
Wait, tell me more about the safe.
Oh, it's a little gimmick that they have, and I think you win prizes.
Gimmick. It's like an escape room. You have to solve the puzzle and
I
open
think you
a
win
lock.
prizes.
Yeah, you win prizes.
That's
you get
cool.
months. You get stuff.
Anyway, so
if I understand correctly, the your listeners in England can go to Rent, Shuffle, and Roll, and if they put in the code GITG50.
Yes, that's GITG50.
What'll happen again?
Oh, they'll get 50% off their first month's rental with Rent, Shovel and Roll.
That is amazing. That's a really great deal. If I lived in England, I would enter the code and I would subscribe today.
Absolutely.
okay. So the second half of this wonderful episode is all about teaching games and how best to do that. Is it through the theme? Is it through the mechanics?
Yeah.
What you thinking, PJ?
Yeah, so we talked about this a lot, and I think it's a great topic to talk about. Is teaching games is difficult. It's already one thing to learn and store all the rules in your head to just play a game. What if you have to teach it? And that's a skill that needs to be nurtured. And you approached Gareth and I about this before the holidays. We've been building up to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want to talk about how themes and mechanics can help teach a game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing, like, you can learn how to play a game, and you can play a game. That's one thing. Learning a game and being able to play a game is one thing. But being able to teach a board game, there's a real skill in that. Being able to know and break down the core bits of a board game to get someone who knows nothing to be able to nothing about the game, whether they're a beginner or they've played other board games but they don't know anything about the game, to really get involved. Like, learning that skill it's a skill that some people just have, and some people sadly just don't really.
They don't have it. So how hard can it really be to teach a game? Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I'm here to tell you that I'm still trying to teach you that this is episode 107 of Meeple to Meeple.
I'm not quite sure about that. I'm pretty sure this is episode 40. Last time I heard.
So you could see teaching can be very difficult. Something as simple as this is, in fact, episode 107 of Meeple to Meeple. And you want me to teach a complex game like On Mars or Men Nefer or anything else like that? Yeah, that's a real challenge. So, Becky, what do you think about theme and mechanics, generally speaking, about how that helps you to teach games?
So, I think I've done a 180. I used to read the rule book and go, right, this is what you have to do logically in sequence, the steps you have to take to complete the game. Like, this is how your turn works. This is the turn structure. You know, you do this, I'll do this, you do this, and I'll do this. But I think when you came over, I feel like I was missing something, because there's so many games that have like brilliant themes, and then I think, oh, actually, if I think about it in terms of the theme, I'm going to get so much more out of it than just learning, like, do this, do that, do that.
Yeah. And games have that inherent in the rule book, but it's the one thing that we all essentially skip over, and that's the flavor text. Right. The story and the flavor within that gives you the theme and gives you a reason as, what am I doing? I'm placing my worker here to gain something. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that to do that. What's that got to do with the theme of the game?
Right.
And it really just unlocks something.
So, not to pour salt in an old wound, but it's directly related to the theme as connected to the gameplay. While Becky can't take turns when we're playing Heat,
this is true.
To the metal,
I've heard this.
Becky failed a key element that if you play this game with Katie and you don't follow this, you don't do this, you're going to get an earful. I know that's hard to believe because she's quiet and introverted. It is important that if you've never played Heat, pedal to metal, you play cards based on the gear that you are currently in, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So you play those cards down and you add up the sum of those numbers, and that's the spaces you move on the racetrack. It is very important that as you're moving your car, you have to make the car noises. You're a race. So you have to go, vroom, and if you just go, vroom, she's mad at you. And if you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and move your car, she's like, this is not Sorry. This is not Monopoly. You are not moving on a board. You've got to embrace the theme. So maybe you could take turns more if you make the car noise, right?
But I think it's things like Heat, like learning, like you were quite cool on Heat.
Mm-hmm.
You just didn't really.
I see what you did
fine, there. But it was worth a shot, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Someone laughed. But once like you really thought about why you're doing what you're doing, it unlocked something else. Mm-hmm. It was like when we played Obsession, you were always a bit like, this is fine, I'm just playing cards, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But then when you were sort of introducing the characters into your house, you're bringing them in, right, and you're really bringing them in part of the theme and embracing it, then you're changing you're bringing yourself in, aren't you? You're more.
Yeah, but I definitely think that sometimes after work we'll play a game and I'm like, well, that was like a rubbish play or a rubbish game, or maybe I wasn't playing it right. But I think it depends how much you invest in going into that world.
Yeah.
Because you can definitely play games just very mechanically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not fun. Like, some of the best experiences, and we've talked about this before, are ones where you all invest, you turn your phones off, you're completely in the game. And I think like something like Dark Tower is a perfect example of this. I don't want to be on my phone because I want to see what's going to happen to all these creatures. And I it's ironic because there is a iPad attached to it. But, like, I'm in that world, and for the hour or however long it takes to play it, I am, trying to escape from this world. And I think a lot of games are far more inviting and far more interesting if you immerse yourself in the world that somebody took a long time to actually create.
Right.
And it makes it easier to teach, actually, if you can say, well, we're here, we're going shopping in the market to collect. For example, we played Survival of the Fattest yesterday.
Yeah.
And you can play that, I'm just picking up cards and I'm just moving my creature. Or you can be like, right, we're foraging for food because the winter's coming and we've got to save up. And then if you're in it, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, it's not like monotonous. I'm doing this, then I'm doing this, then I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Right. So should we talk about my first title that I think is a perfect example of what we just explained? So I want to talk about Distilled by Paverson Games. It's a game that the three of us know well. I think the theme of that game is really helpful when you're trying to teach it, because the designers did so much homework and research into the theme of distilling alcohol and translating that into a beautiful board game, right? People have heard me talk about it before. What makes that game stand out from all other games is the distill phase, right? When you put all of your ingredients after you've gone to market, so the market phase, and you got your water and your yeast, because those are the two main ingredients you need, right? And then your sugar, because your sugar will generate alcohol. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, what's the point? And so the theme will allow you to teach the game. It's like, well, you got it in the market, you need your water and yeast, but you also need sugar for alcohol, right? So make sure you buy that and put that in your your wash back. Backwash. I can't believe I said that. And then that distill phase, right? So we don't have distillers, big, massive tanks, but what we do have is we have these cards, and so we shuffle them up. And the bottom card, because that's the dregs at the bottom of the tank, and then the top card, which is the foam from the fermentation process, that gets skimmed off. So when you're distilling alcohol, you have to use the core of the liquid product in the distill, and that's represented in that. And then you put them in your barrels and you age them. So everything in that game is directly connected to the theme that can help teach that game to someone. This is why you do it, not because an arbitrary rule book says it, but this is why, right?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Because you could just say, right, you're going to go to the market, pick up whatever you want, and then you're going to take the top card off and you're going to take the bottom card off, and there you go, you see what you made? And people will be like, sorry, what? I've got to do what? Right. I don't understand.
But the theme is also, yes, it's so important for like teaching a game. Like, this is the theme, this is what you're doing, this is why you're doing it. But it's also part of selling the game. Because if someone is just the game and it's like, what you're doing is you're just doing this, and then it'd be my turn and I'll do this and then you do that and then I'll do this and then you do. That's that sounds really boring. But if you explain this is the theme, this is what we're doing, it's like, oh, you've sold me on the game. Now I really want to play it.
I have to remind myself to play like PJ. Because no, it's true, because the last time we played Distilled, I think we played it like, oh yeah, you do this and we make this. And like at the end of it, we were kind of like, well, it's a good game, so it's never going to be like a bad play. But we weren't like immersed in it. Whereas when I play and I'm like, oh, I'm going to try and make vodka, and I'm going to use my, I don't know, one of the helper people, what they're called, I don't know, lots of them in the game. I'm going to use one of those, and I'm like talking through what I'm going to do, and how's it going in your brewery or whatever, and you start talking as if you are running a brewery. Then it's much more exciting. You're enthusing other people who you're playing with, and selling it in that way, and then you're like, you get people hooked because you're like, oh yeah, I'm having an experience rather than I'm playing a board game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'll be honest with you. I don't teach many games. I'm not, and Craig and I were talking about the skill of teaching. I'm not very good at it. I'm only good at it when the theme shines through, right? I guess because I'm a historian and I'm a student of humans, and why did Paverson design this game, right? Otherwise, just, I think we talked about it when we were over visiting with you, is like, these designers have chosen these themes. They've done their homework, so we can't just ignore that. But I think to the part of our conversation today is, how does that theme assist you with teaching? So when the theme is tied, like Distilled, like Obsession, other games, it's easier for me to teach, right? I think it's also connected to you had written down in my notes to prepare for this podcast. How do
Don't
people
tell them I prepared anything. I've got some street cred to maintain here.
do?
Stop it.
For the record, it was not Craig. It was indeed Becky who had outlined all this. She
Yeah.
kept this organized. People learn differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're an educator. You understand that. Some people are visual learners, so they need to watch a video. Others are, they can read and just absorb. And I don't know all the terminology that is used in the way people learn, but I'm sure you could speak a little bit about that.
I think that you have to watch the table. And by that, I mean, like, if you're teaching a new game to people, you can kind of get the gist of whether they're people who you could kind of run through a quick turn and then everybody has a go and they're going to learn on the job of, like, while you're playing, or whether you need to do a full-on teach, or whether you need to. Sometimes I think we adapt a game slightly, maybe if it's possible to change something or take something out that's a bit more tricky. Like when we played Ark Nova, and you said about, actually we don't do the kind of take thatty nature of Ark Nova. Actually I was like, oh, okay, so you don't have to do that. Oh, immediately now I'm more invested because I don't like the take that element. So I think it's kind of knowing your crowd and knowing how best they learn.
It's a difficult one. I mean, I like, for a job, have to essentially teach a game within 5 minutes and then off to the next person. And I have to kind of gauge a table of 2, 4, 6, however many people there, gauge their skill set of what games they've played before, and be able to teach them a brand new game potentially in about 5 minutes, if I'm lucky, and get them going and make sure they're happy. And to do that a lot of the time, it is purely based on, this is the theme, you're doing these things, and this is a really basic overview, go. I find it much easier with kids. Like, with kids, you can go Stomp the Plank, for example. Stomp the Plank is a pure push your luck card game. You're flipping cards mechanically, and if you get a sale, you're moving your elephant. But if I'm ever teaching kids that game, I will go full character mode and explain how you're trying to steal treasure from the evil Captain Giraffe, but you've been caught and you're walking the plank. But can you steal the treasure in time? Can you manage to get it? I will go into a full thematic overview of the game, barely touch on the surface of what they're doing mechanically in the game. And it's almost like that's what we should be doing to the adults as well, because that's the theme of the game. That's what you're doing. Yeah, mechanically you're doing some things and there's some confusing things, and some publishers probably put in different terminology. That's another thing. That's all. We'll put a pin in that one. But when people decide that the same thing is a just a different word. Just a different word.
What do you mean? Give an example.
For my example would be the lovely game that I really do love, Expeditions. When it says you can take a sweep action.
Yeah.
It's just a discard action.
Oh, okay.
It's just discarding. Why is it a sweep action? It's like Magic the Gathering. You tap your card to use your ability and attack someone. In Star Wars Unlimited, you exhaust your unit to do that, and then I think in Lorcana it's something else as well.
But that's there's a legal reason why. It's because the company that put out Magic the Gathering, they trademarked the tap.
The tap, yeah.
So you can't do that.
But the sweep, is one of those things that's a bit more of a puzzle.
While I agree with everything you said, it's silly, but there it is. No, I get that. I totally get that. Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. Once again, Craig, I definitely agree with the using a different terminology and everything. But And I think sometimes those are obstacles to teaching. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely. I think they're an obstacle to learning and to teaching. Like, you've got to look at that and go, "What does this word mean?" Flick through the book for ages and work it out, and then you're like, "Oh, it just means this." And then when you teach it, you just say discard. You don't even use the terminology in the game because the terminology that people understand is the base terminology of discard a card, tap a card, do this.
I think the easiest games to teach are also ones that come with a player aid or something to aid, So once you've explained it, sometimes you might want to just check back on what a symbol meant or something. And I think people don't like to play games where they have to keep asking questions of the person who's teaching it. And so if they can have something to refer back to, or even like Wingspan has the play this, like it's like a tutorial version of Wingspan that you can play. And then once everybody's sorted, okay, let's play the proper game.
SETI is a great example of like the biggest, like one quite complicated game, but so easy to teach because of that player aid. It's just like perfect, isn't it?
Yeah. Or like a quick rule view on the back of the rule book, so you don't have to keep going through pages and pages. I think a clear rule book is helpful for somebody learning it, but also for teaching it, because you can say, well, go to that page or have this page open in front of you for when you want to do that action. I think complicated rule books are a difficult one for the person who's trying to learn it, but also, if somebody wants to check a quick rule clarification, it's never that easy, is it? So that's also an obstacle.
So I've got a second game that I want to talk about where the theme is so integrated, right? Much like Distilled. And that's Men Nefer. I promised I was going to talk about it. I had shared some
videos. Anything about this game. So.
Okay. So you are living in ancient Egypt, and there's so many sections of the game. This is much more heavyweight. I think it's a 3.75 on Board Game Geek. I may be wrong. I don't pay much attention to that, but so there's the building of the pyramids of Giza. You also have to sail your boat up the Nile River, and you can go into the cities, dock at the cities to gain contracts that you want to fulfill later on. You have to bury your dead in the necropolis. You go to the temple to present goods to appease the gods, right? And build the Sphinx and place them out, and all these will generate you points and whatnot. Here's the key. At the very top, you have your heart and your feather, and they're far apart. So at the end of each round, you lose points for every mark between the two. You need to get them into harmony. This is directly connected to the way that the ancient Egyptians viewed death. When you die, they would weigh your heart against a feather. And if you lived a harmonious life, you would be able to pass on. And so you have to do that. And then once your two pieces cross over, you start gaining victory points, because you lose victory points at the end of every round until you achieve harmony. So taking actions that gain you hearts and feathers, when you explain that, you understand why that is such a key component of the game. You're constantly looking to do that. But on your player mat, you've got wooden sphinxes and sarcophagi. Here's the interesting thing. The sarcophagi, on one side, you can kind of see a mummy. On the other side, it's the decorative lid of a sarcophagus. So here's the thing. You have to embalm the dead person first, meaning flip it over on your player mat before you can place the sarcophagus in the necropolis. So that theme, it's still the mechanics of you need to flip it to put it over there. I could tell you to do that without any, but you have to embalm before you can bury. That's still true today. The sphinxes, you take an action to move them over. That represents sculpting. You got to sculpt it before you can put it in place, right? So you do that as well. Same thing with moving of the limestone. You build the pyramids in layers. On the top of each quarter, yes, because they're divided for, the top of each quarter is an icon, a fish, feather, heart, and onks, because those are the resources of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever icon you cover, you will gain one of that resource, and the one that's on the top that you're placing, you will gain one of those. In order to take the action where you move your worshipers into the temple, but you have to take the action to get goods first and put those goods on your player board so that you have them to give as an offering in the temple. Everything is connected mechanically, but it's tied into the theme so beautifully. If I don't have goods, I can't give offerings. If I don't embalm, I can't bury. I can't build the top of the pyramid. I got to build the bottom first, right?
When you say it like that, it sounds so simple. But I'm guessing some people will be reading the rule book, going, right, okay, so I can, I can do this, or I can do this, or I can do this, and the way you've just summarized it, which I guess is like a good teacher, is like, okay, so here's what you can do as an ancient Egyptian, and then I'm immediately more clear on which actions I can take, because I'm like, okay, I've got to embalm, I've got to get my goods, etc.
Because let's talk about mechanically for a minute with Men Nefer, right? So the actions you can take is you can move limestone, which will result in building of pyramids. You can flip over a sarcophagus, and then later on, you can move the sarcophagus into the necropolis. You can move your boat into the building. You can activate it. Get fish if it's in the river. Get a contract if it's in the city. You move the temple. I mean, it's mechanically, you're just moving up these tracks and you're putting these pieces out and things are happening and you're getting resources for it. Yeah, mechanically. But why? Right? Why this piece? Why this component goes there? Right? The designers, oh my God, they did the research on it. It's so good. It's so good, and I can't wait to play it with you. And I hope everybody gets a copy of Men Nefer, because it's just amazing.
But the why is really important, because the why is the reason for the people to be playing in the first place. If you're trying to introduce a new game, they're like, okay, but why? Because I've got other games that I like. Why not play Monopoly? Why not play Cluedo? I already play those games. I know those games. Let's play that. So the why is look, come, I'm going to show you this world. You can be an ancient Egyptian in 2025 and you can enjoy that world for 30, 40 minutes or however long the game plays. And you can immerse yourself in this storyland that we have created together, and we will have an experience together.
But that's the thing, isn't it? You want to immerse with games. You are wanting to immerse yourself in that. You don't want to be. You're playing the board game to escape real life. You don't want to be like, well, I've got to play 3 cards. I can do this. They're the things that I'm doing. I can flip this. Like, I want to be doing the actions. I want to be taking part in the world that I'm in. I don't want to be.
But I think sometimes the why gets forgotten, because we've certainly had like games days where the sole concern is to try to play as many games as we can, and new games that we can as well.
Yeah.
So you're like, right, we're going to play this game. Right, put that away. Now we're going to play this game. I think sometimes it's much better to just slow everything down and be like, right, we're going to play. Well, we're going to have this. I keep saying experience.
Yeah.
Things like I remember playing Obsession. I remember playing Heat. They're very vivid in my mind. Yeah. I've played a lot of games with other people, but they don't stick in my mind for the same reason, because we didn't experience it in the same way. We weren't immersed.
We played at MollyCon. We played that epic 5-player game of Scythe, and it was an amazing game. It was so good. We played with everyone. It was really cool. It was fun because we played with everyone, but at no point did I really go, I am this character. I'm going to do this thing. I was just like, right, I need to do this to score these points to win this thing. I need to do this to do this to do this. And I need to go to war with Steve. That's all I was doing. I wasn't thinking thematically, why is my character doing this and why do I keep going to war with Steve? Probably because it's fun. But there was no theme for me thematically. I wasn't doing anything with my character. I was just being Craig moving toys around a board rather than being Craig.
But you could have played Scythe.
Yeah.
With that theme.
With the proper theme, yeah. I could have put myself into those shoes as to why I was doing that.
And I think that's sometimes why I enjoy social deduction, because you have no choice but to immerse yourself.
I think the only time I think maybe there's a drawback to theme is that you get so excited by a theme of a game that it potentially falls flat when you try and you're so excited by. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, and it happened at work. I love Cascadia. I think it's such a good game. Thematically, it's quite nice. You're building out this landscape. You're attracting animals. You're trying to. It's a bit abstract, but hey ho. And I get really excited about the theme of it and how beautiful it is and how simple it is to play. And I recommended it. And obviously I did a good job recommending it because they was really excited about it and they played it and it fell absolutely flat. They didn't have a clue what they were doing. They were like, this really isn't for us. And it was like...
But the same happened with Survive Escape Atlantis. So we played that with my family.
Oh, yeah.
And they were trying to play it so...
seriously.
So true to the mechanisms that they forgot that this is an island that's essentially sinking and everybody's, being lost to the sea and
getting eaten by giant sea monsters.
Suddenly there's a whirlpool and actually, playing that game mechanically to try and win. Yes, obviously that's the point, to try and win, but it's way more fun to kind of just, watch the chaos ensue and imagine that you're in Atlantis with the land disappearing.
Yeah. It's the thing is when you approach a game mechanically, it's like, well, then what is the point? It's just tasks or work, depending, right? So it's all about what the individual player wants to get out of it. I have a really difficult time when the theme is either something I'm not passionate about or it's something I don't identify with. Although that's not always true, because distilled, I don't identify with. I'm not a big whiskey drinker. I'm not a big drinker at all. But that theme just blew my mind. If it's a mechanical game, I tend to be very. I think at its core, that was the problem with Faraway. It was just mechanics, because the theme didn't do anything for me at all. I'm just playing cards on the table. Which is how you originally felt about Obsession.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're
just playing tiles.
I'm playing cards and laying tiles down. Cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, hold on now. Let's talk about Lady Ashbury, who's coming to tea with the lady of, the manor, whatever. It's like, that stuff matters. That flavor text is really important. Talk about a theme that I love. And a game that falls flat. It's more about the theme. It's more about the IP, really. And that's Star Trek. I don't think there's a good Star Trek board game out there. I mean, Ascendancy's good, but flawed. Frontiers is good, but flawed.
There's the new it's Star Realms, basically, isn't it? But with Star Trek.
It is a complete reskin with Star Trek over Star Realms.
But that doesn't technically make sense thematically that would be.
Yeah, but it works. It works. It's kind of good. It's not great. I'm not looking to play it every day, but I enjoy it when I play it. It's like, what is it? I think there's a curse of Star Trek. It just, there's a lot, I can name a lot of Star Wars games I enjoy. I can't name a lot of Star Trek games I enjoy.
Is Starship Captains the best Star Trek game?
See, that's a really good question.
It's like, is Nemesis the best Alien game?
That's an even better question. You were on it today, man. Look at you.
I tried. I have a question, and it's something that I always find interesting, and I don't know why I find this interesting. But do you think good players, people who can play a game incredibly well, like know all the strategies and know everything, Do you think good players make good teachers?
Absolutely not.
Because this is always the thing I've always thought. Because I have a degree in performing arts, and all the teachers
float your own boat.
but none of all of the teachers are all technically actors who are teaching, but none of them are famous. None of them are good actors, but they're good teachers. So, because if they were good actors, we'd be watching them on TV. They wouldn't be teaching me in the classroom. And is it the same with board? Like, if you've got all the strategy down, like I am an absolute master at Seven Wonders Duel, never beaten. But and that's why we had to sell it, unfortunately, because I was too good at it. Not because it's trash and a really bad dumpster fire of a game. But yeah, do good players with? I don't think they do.
I think that sometimes a good player would have so many, like they would be thinking of the end goal of winning and then teaching it through the eyes of, right, this is how you're going to get the best score, but that doesn't necessarily mean enjoyment for the people who are playing.
Right.
And then also if you're playing like a cooperative game where you're playing all together, potentially somebody who knows how to play that game is just taking over the game.
Alpha game.
And so it doesn't become
table captaining.
Yeah. It doesn't become teaching. It becomes like, I'm going to win this game and you're just here for the ride. You know, like...
I think there's a level of teaching as well that's letting people explore and make the mistakes themselves, because those people who know all the tactics will be like, no, what you should do is this would be the best thing to get the most score. No, you need to work that out yourself.
I think like when we played Arc Nova, PJ would say, or Katie would say, well, have you thought about this? You know, have you thought about using this card? But then I would play cards, and then afterwards, you know, you or Katie would say, well, you could have done this, but, you know, I didn't want to interrupt. And I think that's really good, because then every subsequent play of Arc Nova, I've gone, oh, yeah, what was it that I made that mistake on? Oh, I'm going to try something different this time. But if you never make any mistakes, it's like learning, you know, in school. We say if you never make any mistakes, you're not actually learning, because you've done it right all of the time, you know. So I think a good teacher sort of sets up the stall and then says, have a go, have a play with it, see what happens. Might not go right.
Yeah, exactly.
Preach, Becky, preach. You're not wrong at all. I also think that teaching a game is not the same as mastering a game, right?
Yeah.
Identifying and executing a strategy that wins does not necessarily mean that you can communicate that clearly and concisely to other people.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Has it linked to strategies within games as well? Like teaching the strategies in games is kind of like, it's too much for learning a game. You can't teach a strategy and be like, this is the best way to do things. It kind of affects.
I think the strategy comes later.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done an episode on, well, what was it called? What was that fancy word? Is it emergent?
Emergence.
Was that the word?
Emergent qualities.
Yeah.
It was the emergent qualities in board games where strategies emerge after multiple plays, right?
But I think that's different to the teaching. Like the teaching is you're just introducing a game that, you know, people don't know, a new to them game, and you're trying to essentially sell it and let them have an enjoyable experience so they go back to it so that then they can learn for themselves the emergent strategies.
Yeah, exactly that. So I think if people concentrate on when they're trying to teach games, they're also trying to teach people how to win the game rather than just teaching... The end goal is obviously ideal. You need to know the end goal of what you're trying to do and how to win. But you need to know how you can win, but you don't need to know how you can win. That makes sense, right? How you can. You need to know how.
What the end
you
goal
need to know
is,
the objective, but you don't need to know how to win.
Everybody on the way.
Yes.
You just need to play the game and get a decent score.
We can't all be Mecha Dragon.
No. No, we can't. So
No.
how do you handle or approach when you're teaching a game to a player or players who, after you've taught it, they are hyper focused on trying to come up with the best strategy to win? It's their first time playing. You just did a teach 5 minutes ago, right? You want them to enjoy the game. That's what we've been talking about, right? Theme helps teach a game. Theme is all about him being immersive and enjoying the game. But what do you do when they're like, I'm trying to figure out, based on what you just told me, how I can win this game or get the most points out of this turn? Get their head out of the mechanics and back into the enjoyment. How do you handle that?
Well, you can potentially think, if the game is entwined in the theme as it should be,
Mm-hmm.
if you think thematically, that should be the strategy to give you the most points out of it.
Should be.
Technically,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're looking at a distilled, for example, you're looking at the theme. So your tactics is like, okay, today we're going to brew gin. How do we brew gin? We need fruit sugar. We need this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is how we're going to brew gin. We're going to get the things that we need to specifically do the thing. So that's how you get the most points out of this.
I also think that I would do what I do with people who have analysis paralysis and take my turn extra quickly so they realise that they need to hurry up. Come on, move along.
I do that and it doesn't work. Because inevitably what happens is the player takes so long. I've been like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then something happens, the board changes. Like, okay, well, I'm going to do this. And so by the time it gets to my turn, I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because you took so long. And
But
then
that's
we're
the
back
other
to
thing.
you.
That's the other thing in teaching. Like, there's no point saying this is the best thing because the board state might completely change by the time it gets back around to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I can give you a strategy that will work right this second, but when it comes back round to you, those resources might be gone. That space might be taken. That card might have been picked up already. Something else might have been played.
Right.
You might be out of the game. Mecha Dragon might have come along.
I don't think we have many friends who have analysis paralysis. So I think we're in quite a lucky position that when we teach new games, generally we know each other well enough to know how long our turns should take.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think we have friends that math out stuff.
Yeah,
And they do go, okay, so this is the most optimum use of my... So, friend of both podcasts, whether it's episode 40 or 107, who knows? No one knows anymore. John from Try-Win Games,
Uh-huh.
he tried Fromage. I'm a big fan of Fromage. I think it's a perfect,
So are we.
light, like mid to light, after worker placement game. You want something that's a bit crunchy to play, but it doesn't take for 100 years. It's like 45 minutes and done.
Yep.
John messaged me that he enjoyed it, but he worked out and he sent me the maximum points you could score each turn, blah, 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 blah. And he scienced out every step of how many points he could get. And he was like, well, I just didn't really enjoy it because this is exactly what you can possibly do. This is exactly it. It was
he
nice.
wasn't thinking about making the cheese, was
No,
he? He was only thinking
looking
about
at
winning the
he
game.
was looking at the exact points of
He
how
was
to do.
trying to be the best
Like, so
fromage maker.
he scienced it out, and because of that, he was like, because he scienced it out, he decided to, like, he kind of spoilt the game like he spoilt Christmas for
Yes,
himself.
but I think that is but that is essentially why you don't like Seven Wonders Duel, because you found a strategy that would work.
Because it's rubbish.
No, you found a strategy that would work every time, and then it was boring to you.
Mm-hmm.
See,
Yes.
I enjoyed it because I was still trying to find the emergent strategies or, like, what was going on in the game to win. And I think that's the difference, isn't it?
I think that slowed down my love of... Yeah, so I think After Us is a perfect example of that. I love the theme of After Us. I love Planet of the Apes. I love monkeys. And I love apes. And I love planets. Anyway, I love Vincent Detroit artwork. So that ticks all the boxes immediately. And thematically, I get it. I've got this little tribe of monkeys and we need to get the big gorillas in to help, blah, 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 blah. But now I found a strategy. I found a strategy to that game that my tribe of monkeys is going out to do the same thing every single time I play it.
But if you taught it, you wouldn't teach it like that, would you?
No.
Because you would still want to win.
The truth comes out.
No, I would.
No, because that would ruin it for somebody.
No, you have to let them find those strategies. But the problem there is like I found a strategy that wins me the game 95% of the time, 80% of the time, maybe. But
right, I think that goes back to Nick Bentley. He was our guest when we talked about emergent qualities. That's exactly what he's talking about. Is that so many of our hobbyists are like, oh, well, I found the strategy, so I'm done. It's like, no, you haven't. You found one, but there's better. And the more you play the game, the more you realize the different strategies, and it makes the game fresh each time you play it. But yeah, I get that too. But then there's some games that are designed. It's a flaw in the game that has a mathematical minimum and maximum, right? And it's possible that John figured it out for Fromage.
I'm still going to like it.
Yeah,
I'm never going to math it out.
Meanwhile, I'm writing in my book, note to self, don't play Fromage with try-win games. I love you, John. I do. I know you're going to listen, but we're not playing Fromage.
Well, look, I definitely want to play it with more players, so maybe we should like BGA him and make him play Fromage online.
So I have a quick story about Fromage. I played with a good friend of ours here in the U.S., Michiana Board Gamery. She's like, hey, I just got a physical copy of Fromage. I want to play it. Are you interested? Cool. So played it on BGA. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, why is the board spinning? I'm just clicking on stuff. BGA for me, here's about learning and teaching. BGA for me is not a good tool to learn a game.
No, I had this on my list. I was like,
okay, great.
So many times we've been really excited about a game, and it's usually with games with Beanie and my shelf life most of the time. And we will be like, oh, you must play this game. One of the examples is Lost Ruins of Arnak. We love that game, and it is on BGA. We like really put Susie off because we played that on BGA and it was way too complicated. And also we taught them Survive Escape Atlantis, and it was in beta, and it was so slow to set up and then take your turns. Like, it really put them off, I think.
It's boring online. It's just, there's nothing you can, it's just meh.
I definitely think that teaching games on BGA has a lot of pitfalls. Like, it's not ideal for teaching a newbie a game and letting them experience it, you know.
I really don't think that, like, BGA is not a try before you buy service. But what is a try before you buy service is rent, shuffle, and roll. And you can use code GITG50 to get 50% off your first month.
Is going to be, you know.
That's GITG50.
Wow.
For 50% off your first month at Rent, Shuffle, and Roll.
Yeah.
Right. So, PJ, your board game menu.
Yep.
3 games that you would bring out and teach to, you know, newbies or people who haven't played those games before. What you picking?
So for the appetizer is Patsquara.
What's that?
Yeah, Patsquaro. So it's a game that I discovered at Gen Con. It's a card game. It's a small box game where the theme helps me to teach it. You are in Mexico preparing for the Day of the Dead. Dios de los Muertos. And so you're preparing your altar. So one of the things in their culture is you build an altar in your home, and you place pictures of your deceased family members, and you bake breads and fruits and other little paper mache or ceramic skulls and things that you would put on this altar for that day, a way to keep their memory alive and to help them pass into the afterlife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you do that by, you have a little meeple and you move around the market and you're buying cards. You're really just trading out cards because you have cards in your hand, and you build like a little, your altar's like a pyramid. I think it's like 4 cards, 3 cards on top of that, and 2 cards for a total of 7, 6, 10. What is that? 9, 4 and 3 is 7 plus 2 is, 9 cards. And so you're building up this whole thing, and you score points based on the number of certain icons on the first row, the second row, and the top row. And when you explain that, it's like you're exploring this significant cultural moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a simple card game that really doesn't take long, but I'm able to explain why you're doing this. And that's the appetizer. That would be the first game I bring out. It's amazing. You got to check it out. It's also beautiful. It's very colorful, much like the altars in Dia de los Muertos. So I apologize to our Spanish-speaking listeners who are offended by my accent.
So what's your main course?
I think you know what my main course is, and that's going to be Steam Up. You thought I was going to say Obsession, didn't you? But we talked about it, and it was going to be. But Steam Up's another good one. So Steam Up by Hot Banana Games, right? You're eating dim sum out of bamboo steam buns, and part of that is it's a shared experience. You're rotating the table to be that little conveyor belt of the bamboo steam buns on top of each other, and inside are different types of dim sum items. Mm-hmm. It's a little asymmetrical because you have a player board and you're going to put them on there. You're trying to collect them. So it's a little bit of set collection. So it's a great way to explain a mechanic, set collection, to a new player. But that theme is relevant. You're at a restaurant eating dim sum, and your particular character enjoys this item over another. Or I think my favorite one is the grandpa. I think he's a bull, but he's like the grandfather. And in the game, you can only take from the quadrant in front of you. He can take from anywhere because he's granddad. So he reach across the table to get what he wants to eat, right? And that theme is really tied into the mechanics of the game. And so it helps me to teach. It's a little bit bigger of a game. The first player marker is a soft, squishy bow bun.
Oh.
Epic, guys. Epic. That is Steam Up. So Steam Up is my entree.
And then what you're finishing the night with?
So I'm going to finish the night with First in Flight.
Oh,
yeah. This game is really good. You are one of the first designers of aircraft in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, here in the U.S. And so you're moving around the board. And so what you're doing, you have the frame of an aircraft already built. You go to take actions if you can, because if a worker's there, obviously, this is a great way to explain worker placement to a new member of the hobby as well. But that theme is still tied into it. You need upgrades to make your aircraft better. You need patrons who are going to fund you so you can make a better aircraft. You also need practice so you can learn stunts that will enhance your flight. And then you land on the flight zone and it's push your luck. You flip the cards to see how far along you go, right? And if you hit a major flaw, or you crash, you put those in your garage or your player mat in front of you. You can repair those later, put those cards in the box, and pull out a minor flaw, right? Because you've learned, you fixed that, but it's still problematic, right? It's a beautiful game. See, you can teach the mechanics of push your luck and minor worker placement, but the theme is so tied in, and you're moving across the board to indicate your flight. And you're like, oh, look, I went further than you this round. You got to get to 40 to win the game, right? It's just, that's my menu of board games where themes help me to teach to the people at the table who've never played this game before.
Did you have one?
Yeah, sure. I think.
I hope you're not going to ask me because I haven't prepared.
Oh well,
anything.
you got.
Well, you're up last, so you better get ready.
I think my starter for teaching using theme would actually be ouch. We mentioned it before. It's just you're trying to pick flowers off of a cactus and you don't want to get stung. That's the theme, and it's literally you're trying to pick from the side of the card, the side of the cactus, and if you get caught, you get stung. It's a really easy way to explain a game. And then obviously you can explain scoring, whatever, but that's just whatever. But that's the theme of a nice light starter game. My main course is, of
Here we
course,
go.
It's going to be Everdell. Because thematically, there's a cat. There we go.
Wow.
Ignore that, podcast listeners. The cat decided to try and take out the laptop. Anyway, Everdell, and I don't edit, so that's in the podcast. Anyway, sorry,
That's
Gareth. So Everdell is a worker placement game, but not only does thematically that you can explain these critters, you're getting these resources to build houses, build things, you're hiring people to work in your hospitals and your post offices that you've just built and stuff that you've just built. You're also completely immersed because there's a freaking great big tree on the board and a huge amount of beautiful components, and so the theme comes alive because of the production, and also it's just really easy to explain through theme what you're doing and why you're doing it, and it just makes sense. And the events are part of scoring. Having those events, you can be like, oh yeah, because you've managed to get these people, so you can have this party, or you can do this and that, so on and so forth. So Everdell is my main course, and my final choice, the go home show.
Yeah.
The pudding portion, the dessert, the whatever they call it, cheese board, is going to be Wandering Towers.
Oh, that's a good choice.
So Wandering Towers, essentially, there are two ways to kind of explain the theme. I like the Harry Potter-esque, you're racing to get to class and the stairs are moving, whereas they're not stairs in this game, they're towers are moving. And I like to explain how to fill up your potions. You have to crush your other wizards and use their blood to fill up the potions to win the game by getting everyone to class with the blood of their other wizards. I'm not sure that's bang on theme. However, I'm mostly there. And that's my that would be my menu. 3 games that I enjoy. Things are happening on the pod. Do you have yours?
No, I only thought of 2.
Okay, go on then.
So we're not going to get a complete meal out of Becky.
Oh.
We're either going to miss out on pud.
We're going to play the main course multiple times.
Oh, I know. Wait, I know because PJ, you had a go, didn't you? And then I had my turn, and then, funnily enough,
Becky can't take turns.
Here we go. And that's how it should end.
That is a great ending for the episode, but no. Give me your menu.
Cult Express, I think, is a really easy teach. The theme comes through. You're on the train trying to steal all the money and the loot and avoid the sheriff. And I think that was the first game where I thought, oh, board games do something different, and I like to get that across to new people.
And there's no board.
Exactly.
There's no board. That's great.
And then I think I would play 2 games of Distilled.
2 games of Distilled.
Because I always play Distilled and then really want to play another game of Distilled because I realise, oh, yeah, that's what I was supposed to be doing all along. Can we just redo? So that's what we're doing.
Excellent. So if Paverson Games is listening, both these podcasts, episode 40, Getting the Games on Air, and episode 107 of Meeple and Meeple, we're looking for sponsorship, and we'll happily sponsor you and talk about Distilled all the time. So I want to say one of the interesting things you tapped in it just now. So Distilled is such a good game, you want to play it again. So we played Men Nefer twice at Geekway Mini this weekend, and of course we won the copy. So we're driving home yesterday in the car, and I'm thinking about actions I want to take the next time we play. Right. So yeah. Also about theme being so immersive. So one of the things I wanted to do, and we have not done it yet, we're probably going to need more than 2 players. We learned that today because this morning we played Men Nefer again in preparation for this podcast. I wanted to so you have the Great Pyramid and then you have the 3 minor pyramids. We did not finish them all. That's hard work. And you run out of those build actions because you only get to them as you move you move your limestone piece along the track. And so you need help. I can't build the Great Pyramid by myself. There's not enough build actions. So y'all are going to have to come over and play so we can build these pyramids. I'm telling you.
Cool.
And you can get us over to PJ in sunny America just by, going to Rent, Shuffle and Roll. And using code
GITG
50,
you will get
50% off, and we get a little kickback. So we can have the lights on for a little bit longer, pay the electricity bills. We're never going to be able to.
PJ.
We can go see PJ. We can go see PJ. So
right.
yeah,
where can they find us?
Where can they find you, PJ?
Thank you for asking, guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We just hit 40 subscribers over the weekend. So that's great. So make sure you like and subscribe. You can listen to us on Spotify and again on YouTube. We just launched that for episode 100. You can find us at meeple2meeple, the number 2, not T-O, meeple2meeple on Instagram. I'm the Cajun Gamer on Instagram. My co-host Gareth is Board Game Meeple on Instagram as well, and he's really sorry he couldn't be here today, but this was a fun conversation, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
And where can we find you, Craig and Becky?
Well, I am Get Into, that's T-O, not the number 2, Get Into Games on Instagram, and Becky is Mrs. _Get Into Games.
I can't even speak for myself now.
Thank you for tuning into my podcast.
You're welcome.
Where can we find you?
I don't even know what my tagline is.
We can find Becky searching.
Probably at work most of the time.
We can find Becky online at Shirts and Merch's Etsy store, looking for fantastic shirts for games night, and you too could look fantastic. Please leave us a 5-star rating, 5-star review on your podcatcher of choice, whether that's on the Meeple to Meeple podcast or on Get Into Games on air. Almost forgot what our podcast was called. We are in episode 107. Meeple to Meeple are in episode 40.
Scratch that. Rewind. Try again.
Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure you are following PJ and Gareth and Meeple to Meeple on all of those social networks.
And make sure that you are listening to Craig and Becky at Get Into Games on air. Not to be confused with Get Into Games or Mrs. Get Into Games.
Yes. Or be confused with that. I don't mind. But yes, thank you so much for listening. We've uploaded every episode onto YouTube as well, so every episode is available from 1 to 40. This will be there. Once I make it public, for some reason it always comes up part private, and I don't understand computers.
People don't need to know
science. They do.
They do.
Okay.
Becky, this is important information that our listeners are dying for.
They need the information. They love this information. This is the reason.
I'm just feeling sorry for Gareth listening to this back.
No, he'll know that it's in trusted hands with my editing skills.
That's
PJ,
right.
Never again.
Don't do it again. Possibly the longest episode in Meeple to Meeple history.
Well, Gareth's used to that, right? I mean, his Meeple Monday, longest one on record, was with me.
Well,
this is what happens when meeples meet meeples and get into games while on air. This is what happens. Right?
See, get into games on air, connecting podcasts from both sides of the Atlantic. Thanks so much. And remember, get into PJ. Why am I getting into PJ? That was a weird silence. You're just pointing at PJ. I'm not going to get in PJ. Well,
so that was
after the last episode where I said
that's a different website.
Get into My Box Live. I don't want to say anything now.
Get into meeple to meeple.
Get into. This is what happens when you unite players and podcasters around the world.
Yeah. When are we getting that battleship so we can meet in the middle of the Atlantic and we can play board games?
Well, if meeple2meeple could find some really powerful sponsors like Rent, Shuffle, and Roll and shirts and merch, and maybe even Paverson Games, we could afford that vessel where we can game in the Atlantic. Yeah.
We have a Patreon. I haven't done anything with it, but we have a Patreon account set up.
Wow.
If you want me and PJ to be able to play games in the Atlantic and we can live stream it,
that's
just
right.
give us a couple of million on Patreon. Why are you doing the cutting throat symbol? It's really rude.
And
it's like you want me to wrap up the podcast or something.
We're going to wrap it up. Just wrap it up.
If you have got to this part of the podcast, you need to leave the comment Meeple to Games on air in our comments, and we love you people who get to the very end of this podcast.
We do.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
And remember too, we're going to do it properly now. Get into
meeple2meeple.
People get in what?
I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't work. It doesn't work when we're all together.
Everything, nothing. But 3 is the perfect number, right?
Yeah.
3 is the perfect number. It's perfect.
Exactly. Cool.
That's right.
Thanks for listening. Yeah, everyone's doing the cutthroat thing to me, so I better press stop now. All right. So sorry, lads. Have fun.